Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Far Out Wisdom Podcast. I hope that everybody's having a wonderful day, and remember to breathe in and breathe out. Yeah, the world's crazy. We're still on lockdown, everybody. But I really appreciate that you're taking the time to listen to this podcast episode, especially new people. Thank you for, clicking on whatever you found this podcast and decide to give it a listen. So I really appreciate everybody helping me out, because I have 5,000, almost 6,000 downloads, everybody. So hooray for me. Before I introduce my guests, I wanted to introduce our sponsor, and that is Rebecca Eigen for ShadowDance.com. Rebecca Eigen, an astrologer for 25 plus years, specializes in relationships, from everyday decisions to critical life-altering moments. Rebecca shares with you her practical wisdom and guidance for your life's journey in becoming who you're meant to be. Using Jungian psychology, Rebecca guides you to see the potential that hides in your hidden self, your shadow. Sign up for your Shadow Work in 7th House webinar, or have a private consultation and find out how the universe has always had your back. You just didn't know it. So if you guys click the link down below, which will lead to her website, remember to tell Boone sent you. So if you do that, it supports FOW. Also, I'm also affiliate of Podbean. So if you are a podcaster looking for a hosting site, try Podbean. They offer unlimited hosting plans and business plans, which I will link down below. Doing so helps support the Far Out Wisdom podcast. So the unlimited hosting plan is www.podbean.com/FOW, FOW. The business hosting plan is www.podbean.com/pro/FOW. And like I said, I'm going to link it down below, so you guys click it, and it helps me a lot if you guys do so. And remember that I also have a PayPal, Venmo. I also have a Patreon. So if you really like FOW and my little sense of humor, talking about all these crazy stuff with pretty much far out people, doing so, goes a long way. So in this episode, I decided to have Randell Stroud from Nalina Global, and I had my friend John Pier to come on, talk about trans ad league and stuff like that. So we talked about COVID-19, we talked about current day politics, we talked about lots of things, and it's our opinion. I know that in this day and age everybody's like really angry at each other, but hey, we're just having a conversation and talking with each other. I really wanted to point out that near the end, John was he was talking about how losing friends and stuff, and that's not the aim of this podcast. The aim of this podcast is to pretty much put everything out in the open, and we all three of us try to explain ourselves the best of our ability. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and remember to always stay far out. Bye. Okay, and it is recording. Let me see. Okay.
All right.
So I'm back with my boys. John was late. It's his Filipino time. So as I had two of my homies, and we decided to have a conversation about, we're going to be talking about transgender in sports. Trigger alert. We're not trying to make anybody mad or anything like that. So don't, send us hate mails or anything like that, because this is just a conversation that I really want to have with these two because the fact that I'm curious. Me and Randall, we had this conversation before, but I did not know what he was talking about because I'm not an MMA fighter. I have no idea about the sports. I don't know how you guys, pick and choose your fighters. I think Randall was talking about weight class. I'm like, weight class? What does that even mean? So that's like me going up to you guys and talking about makeup, and you guys are like, what are you talking about? Contour? What's contour? So I have Randall from Nalini Global back. Say hi, Randall.
Hello.
So you guys know him. He was in the episode before. And then we have a new beautiful face with John. Say hi, John. Welcome to the Fire Wisdom universe. He's driving, by the way.
Hello. I don't know about beautiful, but okay. I'll take it.
Dude, you got to be careful because the last time you got into like an accident driving. I remember that. Okay.
Oh, it was a Tesla's fault, not mine. I'm kidding. No, it wasn't my fault at all. Just want to disclose all that. It's being investigated, yes, but there was already an accident before I came in the picture.
So there was an accident, then you just joined in with the fucking crash orgy? What is it?
Exactly how you just explained it.
Wow.
Everybody's okay, by the way. I think somebody got really hurt. I shouldn't be laughing about that. I'm going to go hell for that. But John's okay. He came out fantastic. So John is a fight. Did you get back into fighting, John?
So that's the plan. Right now, I am back to, I'm getting back in shape.
Okay.
And starting next week, I've actually gotten invited to train with a friend who invited me before a while back, like 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. His name is Kai Wu. He's Asian, Kai Wu. I'm sorry. Yeah. He fights out of Asia as well, and he trains here in the U.S.
Oh, interesting. So
upcoming. Well, he's a pro fighter, and he's up there. And I know it's a different topic, but you guys will eventually see him. He's actually had a TED Talk too. So yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I would like to invite him some other time.
Oh, that'd be nice. I would have a conversation with that. Like, I don't know, I didn't know like martial arts or anything like that. But so Randall, you're back in the ring. Are you? Are you competing, or are you just?
Oh no, I'm gonna be 34 years old in June, and I competed all throughout my 20s, and I still have a select group of people that I do privates with and stuff like that. But the only way that I would get back into the ring is if there was a huge paycheck waiting for me. But
okay, so if you guys get into if you guys compete, for example, do you guys still win money, or that's what I heard?
It just depends. So there's all different types of martial arts. There's boxing, taekwondo, wrestling. There's all kinds of combat sports, and then you have mixed martial arts. But there's amateur matches where you wear headgear and you don't get paid, and then there's tournaments where you just win trophies and medals, and you normally don't get paid for those either. But once you go into the professional realm, you have to apply for a license. It's oftentimes televised, mm-hmm. and then you do get paid. So mm-hmm. the professional and the amateur ranks are different. And there are some amateurs out here that are competing in tournaments, and they're just as good as some of these pros, but they just don't take it to that level. And, it's more of a part-time thing for them. But once you go into the pro ranks, that's, your job now. But some pro fighters do have a normal job, and then they, do professional fighting at the same time. And right now, there's a heavyweight UFC fight tonight with mm-hmm. His name is Stipe Miocic. He's the champion, and he's defending his title. And he's a heavyweight champion, but he also works as a firefighter. I don't know how he balances the two.
Somebody's gonna Google
somehow
that,
he does it. Yeah, somehow he does it.
Oh wow! I can imagine, with me, if I get into MMA, and I'm tiny, I'm not gonna get into it, but I could imagine myself doing that and working at Subway. Fuck it.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
It's always a good exercise either way.
It's like, so now that you guys are in your 30s. How old are you, John? Like you're in your like 20s?
I just turned 30 on January.
Oh, you're still young. Well, we're in our 30s, by the way. So if you guys,
I feel old. Well, at least in the fighting world, my age is considered old.
Really? So if you guys become old, so it's like they look for like a certain age you have to retire. Like what's the average age that MMA fighters retire?
Well, I mean, it all depends. Like, for example, Bernard Hopkins, one of my favorite boxers, he retired a couple years ago at the age of 52, and he became a world champion at the age of 48. So most fighters, like what John just said, once you hit 30, that's about your prime. And then, once you're like 34, 35, you're pretty much on the downslope. So
Okay.
most fighters, once they hit 35, if they take really good care of themselves, they might be able to push it to 40, but it all depends. So think of your body like a car, and it has miles on it. So if you're one of these fighters that's really defensive and you don't take a lot of damage, your career is going to last longer. But if you're someone that's like, Rocky, and every fight that you get into is a war and you take a million punches to the head, you're going to have a shorter career. So it just depends. But I would say on average, like mid 30s, your career is pretty much on the downslope for most people. Right.
And so is that also with women? Because it's a little bit different with women, as well as that between.
Well, I mean, women have 2 arms and 2 legs, just like men do. They have ligaments and muscles that can be, torn and broken. So it all depends. It all depends on how you treat your body and what your style of fighting is. There are some fighters that fight well into their 40s and are still successful. And then there are some fighters like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson in his 20s was a monster, but he didn't take good care of himself, got in a lot of trouble. By the time that he was like 31, 32, he was pretty much done, and he wasn't really that successful anymore. But then a guy like Randy Couture in the UFC, he became champion at age 42 and was dominant. So it just depends.
So what about both of you? Did you guys feel like the after effect of fighting did you guys compete professionally, correct?
So I'll let John talk for a second because I've been talking for a minute. So I'll let him chime in for a moment.
Go ahead, John.
Sure thing. So no, I'm still an amateur. I'm working my way up to turn pro. I should have turned pro 2 years ago, and of course I follow with my coach instruction not to turn pro yet until I win 1 amateur title. And I'm feeling the age. Like, you know what? A couple more fights, like 2 fights left, title or not. It's gonna be my decision because really anyone can turn pro. Anyone can get a license. As far as I know, I've sparred with a lot of pro fighters who shouldn't even be considered professional fighter. But like, to me, it's all business. It's all business. And I just want to get back to what Randall was saying earlier about retirement. Yes, I do agree. The average around mid 30s, 35. There's this guy named George St. Pierre. He's one of the best of all time in mixed martial arts. And I believe that he played it smart during his early days of his fighting career. He was getting hit a lot in his head. He was taking a lot of headshots, and this guy was coming from a karate background, and what that means, like, it was striking, mostly stand up, and the guy learned how to be better in wrestling. And it's what kind of made his career longer, because he would wrestle people. He would take people down. and kind of smothered them and punched them. Yes, it's not like damaging him, damaging his opponent so much that they would get concussion, but enough to win the fight. So basically, he played it safe towards the end of his career, and he got out of the game early, which is a good thing. I'm not bashing on that. I respect that. He got out of the game without really hurting himself.
I kind of imagine getting hit in the head, like me just getting like smack myself, combing my hair. I'm like, ugh. That's why I never got into MMA. But majority of my girlfriends did. They got into like MMA and stuff like that, and they tell me that with women it's a little bit different because of the fact that they have to make sacrifices and like hold out on the family. Does that make sense? I mean, nobody's not going to get into a ring with a pregnant chick. You know what I mean? It's just not. No. So could you imagine that?
I wouldn't recommend that.
Go ahead, John.
I was saying, competing in mixed martial arts or any type of combat sports in general, it's not a game. It's not a game where you can just take it lightly. It's
right.
The best of the people, the best of the guys, the best of the women in this sports have to do this full time. And just like what Randall said, we don't know how a guy named Stipe Miocic, which is a UFC heavyweight champion, what that means, he is considered the baddest man on the planet, like what Mike Tyson had before. He was considered one of the most, if not the most dangerous man on the planet. So that is where Stipe's status is. Now, at the same time, as he mentioned, he is a firefighter. So that is really impressive, juggling his outside work of the UFC. But I kind of have an experience or a glimpse of what he does because I worked for Tesla and I was putting in like 60, 80 hours. Of course, I wasn't like going on a fire truck, trying to save people, trying to fight fire. It's not like that. But I kind of have an idea on how he does it.
Right.
Coming from a sales background, I would suck a couple of cars in the morning, lift weights on the afternoon, finish my work in the office around 5, and go straight to the gym again. I was full time doing jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and Muay Thai. Man, I would love to go on more of that. I know we're gonna have to talk more about the topic when it comes to transgender.
Yes.
In sports.
Yes.
Especially in the combat sports like mixed martial arts.
Right.
Well, just to chime in really quickly about juggling careers and whatnot, whenever you're in your early days of coming up in the lower ranks, the average professional boxer gets paid maybe a couple of $100 for a fight. And then as you go up in the ranks and as you become more popular, the promotions pay you more and more. Now, boxing's been around for a whole lot longer, so the organization is a lot more put together, and boxers typically get paid more. MMA fighters, they get paid like not very good at all. And I'm actually friends with Kung Lee. He's a Vietnamese fighter who is now retired from the UFC, and he's actually involved in a lawsuit with the UFC because the promoters are making millions of dollars, and these fighters are putting their lives on the line, and they're getting paid chump change like $5 or $6 grand. Now $5 or $6 grand is pretty decent money, but not when you're considering that you're putting your health on the line. So coming up through the ranks, you really have to, market yourself very well so that you can get paid, because you do have a finite amount of time that you can make money, because once your body doesn't work anymore, there's no retirement plan or pension in fighting. Once you can't fight anymore, you're done. So marketing yourself and picking smart fights and going into smart organizations. There's this whole business side where we could do a whole podcast just on the corruption that is in professional combat sports.
And
so
that'd be
I
cool.
just wanted to, throw that out there.
Yeah, that'd be good if you guys invite the fighters and then just have this conversation. You guys can come on file and talk about that. So that's really something that not a lot of people talk about. Like Joe Rogan, he talks about MMA and stuff like that, but I don't get really interested because the fact that I just don't. He talks to like professional, like the guys who are like on the top. And so talking about the bottom ranks, the people climbing up the ladder, just like everybody else, it's like a hierarchy, basically. Like you start from the bottom and then goes to the top. So the topic, could you guys define MMA? So John said combat sports. So, and we're going to be talking about transgenderism or transgender in sports. So could you guys define mixed martial arts to the audience if they don't know, if they're just like regular person? John, can you try to define it? And then Randall, you can chime in.
Sure thing. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
All right, basically, mixed martial arts today, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Randall, but it's a combination of the most effective martial arts or combat system in a sport.
Mm-hmm.
Combination of boxing, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing,
mm-hmm.
and a lot more, and a couple more other martial arts that don't get mentioned a lot, such as karate. Well, karate has been popular forever.
Right.
Another combat form is sambo, which is like a Russian fighting system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like, I'm not saying martial arts because I'm not even sure anymore which ones are considered martial arts.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for the most part, the ones that I know, majority of the fighting style that they use in mixed martial arts are combinations of all other martial arts that have been in a sport,
okay,
or what some other people would say watered down fighting, or watered down version of war.
Yeah. And Rado, do you agree with his his definition of it?
Well, he did make some good points, and the history of martial arts, I mean, goes back thousands and thousands of years. Different cultures came up with different ways of fighting. Like you go to Japan, you have karate and jiu-jitsu. If you go to China, you have all these different, kung fu styles. Those are considered like traditional martial arts, and they were, designed for like, war practices. So if you practice, a traditional martial art, like Filipino martial arts, like Kali, they do like a lot of, knife fighting, and they're teaching you like how to kill someone. Like, this is how you go to war. Now, obviously, we can't walk around just, stabbing people and, kicking people in the nuts and all these kind of things.
Can I jump in real quick? Yeah, can I jump in real quick? So, John, you're Filipino, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I know this is out of topic, but I just wanted to bring this up. The other day, I was reading about YoYos, and that the Filipino used that as a weapon. What the fuck?
I just this is the history that I know about yo-yo. I know I used to play yo-yo when I was a kid.
Me too.
I just didn't know the history of it. This is just from someone telling me, okay? Yes, yo-yo was supposed to be like a weapon. From my understanding, I'm not sure if this is. I'm gonna look this up. From what I heard, they used to put they used to use grenades or like some kind of bomb, some kind of explosion. They use it for war. So I'm not so sure if someone is making that up. But as far as I know, yes, the history of yo-yo was a weapon.
You know who I learned it from? I learned it from Joe Coy. Joe Coy is a comedian. He's Filipino. It's like, can you imagine getting assassinated by a fucking yo-yo?
Wow.
But anyway, sorry, Randall. I just wanted to bring that up. That was pretty funny that I thought about. But So go ahead, Randall. You were talking about the Filipinos and their martial art.
Well, like a really good example, like John was talking about that, mixed martial arts or any sort of sport is like a watered down version of like the original traditional martial art, which was usually meant for, for war purposes. Really
Right.
good example. If we take karate, for example, they practice with swords and sticks and all these different kind of things. And many of the original practitioners of karate, or as the legend goes, they invented the art, a bunch of farmers in Japan, to defend themselves against the samurai that would come through the villages and sort of bully them. Now, obviously, if you look at mixed martial arts in the early 90s, there was only like 2 or 3 rules. No kicking in the nuts and like no poking in the eyes. But people still did it. And there was no weight classes. So a 100-pound guy could fight a 300-pound guy. It was crazy. And it was like style versus style. So like, karate versus sumo and all these kind of things. But what we learned is that many martial arts had ignored the grappling element. So a lot of wrestlers were doing very well and taking down boxers and taekwondo guys and all these things. So for years we thought, man, all those kicks and things, all those pretty techniques don't work. But then people learned how to defend against, grappling, and then we started seeing more kicks. And so basically modern mixed martial arts is, and in modern mixed martial arts in the UFC and other organizations, I think there's like anywhere from 10 to 20 rules to abide by. So like, you can't hit someone in the back of the neck. You can't poke them in the eye. You can't bring a knife to the ring and stab someone. But the goal of the UFC and this MMA in general is let's allow people to use whatever technique from whatever martial art they want with as few rules as possible so that they can express themselves as honestly as possible. Because MMA... MMA is a sport. It has rules. It's not going to war. There's no guns. There's no knives. There's no multiple opponents. But MMA is the sport of fighting, whereas boxing is the sport of punching.
Right.
So the sport is important because it allows you to practice your martial art as realistically as possible without someone getting killed, because there are some rules and a referee. Whereas in the traditional martial arts, they get criticized a lot because they practice all these movements that could kill someone, but they do it with a willing partner, and it's just for demonstration purposes, because you can't really practice breaking someone's neck, because once you break their neck, they're just dead. So it's hard to practice it on, a willing partner. So mixed martial arts is basically the safest and most humane way to, let's see who would win if 2 people got in the cage together and fought, and we took away the most violent techniques and let them go at it. And as time goes on, more people are starting to experiment. So as John said, at first it was boxing and wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Those martial arts, were very practical and did very well. But as fighters are getting better, they're experimenting, and then they're starting to branch out and bring in techniques from more esoteric martial arts like Wing Chun Kung Fu or, Taekwondo, and the fighters are getting more creative. So it really is an environment where any sort of martial artist can sort of, test their techniques in a somewhat safe environment and maybe even get paid.
Right. So you guys both agree, to the audience who's listening, it has rules. Every sports have rules. So like John said, combat sports, are they very strict with the rules? Right? They're very
you can literally get fined.
Yeah, very strict in the rules. Yep.
Yeah. So now this is what I brought these two that I want to be talking about. So MMA has rules, and you guys know it's really obvious that men are built much more bigger than women. I'm not saying this to discourage any trans women to compete, but you guys know, I know that Fallon Fox did a lot of damage to her opponents. She cracked their skull. I don't know what happened after that fight. So I wanted to ask you too, since you guys do compete in sports, what are your thoughts on a trans woman competing with a biological woman?
John, I'll go ahead and let you go first, and then
Sure.
I'll chime in.
Absolutely. We're talking about that Fallon fighter, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Fallon
Fox. Yeah.
Fallon Fox, yeah. Whoever allowed that fight to happen should be sued.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, men are built different. That's just how to explain this. That's basically just without sounding so offensive.
It's okay.
It really looked like it really looked like you putting an adult versus a child.
Right.
And
John's not calling women a child. That's not what he's saying. He's talking about the body. He's making the analogy for the body being built differently. Yeah. Yeah.
Being built differently. I believe I was listening to a podcast before. I might have heard this from Joe Rogan, and as you've said, that men are built different than women.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, men would have more advantage. Their bone structure are more dense, more bigger than women.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to say that.
But
that's just the way it is. Not that a woman cannot beat a man. I mean, of course, there are plenty of women out there who can beat up men through their practices, whatever combat system that they're training. Mostly, I would say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling. It is possible for a woman to beat up a man who is trained in the art of fighting.
mm-hmm.
Even if they are the same size, and I've seen this happen. However, if you put someone, let's just say, with the same skill, a man versus a woman with the same skill set, same weight,
Mm-hmm.
and I will tell you right now that the man would win.
Right.
10 out of 10.
Right. Regardless of training, because of the fact that he's built more bigger, right?
I just don't know how to express it even more. I guess I'm gonna have Randall to
add to it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just add more stuff to it. Yeah.
Well, for anyone's listening and they're getting triggered by this, I can give you a real life example. So I actually do follow female fighters and female martial artists, and I respect them very much. A lot of people don't know this, but the Chinese martial art of Wing Chun was actually created by a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So Ip Man and Bruce Lee, they are the ones that popularized, Wing Chun, that system of martial arts. And it has some, somewhat effective techniques that I like to borrow from sometimes. But there are some historical female martial artists. Now, with that being said, my favorite female boxer is Lucia Riker. She was a champion in boxing and also in Muay Thai kickboxing. Mm-hmm. And she only lost a handful of fights. I mean, she was badass. I mean, she's like in her late 40s now, but she was just insane. But she did a challenge match against a man who was not even championship caliber, and they fought in a kickboxing match. And you can look this up on YouTube. Lucia Riker versus man. He was some Thai guy, and those people from Thailand, they have like these really long names that I can't pronounce.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But in that fight, she put up a decent fight in the first round, but you could tell that she was just, being manhandled because, as John said, the longer that your body is exposed to testosterone, the denser and harder your bones get. Mm-hmm. So men can take more damage too physically. It's not just about being stronger, but also more durable.
Right.
So as John said earlier, if you take a woman, let's say that she weighs 150 pounds,
mm-hmm.
And she is a world-class martial artist. Yeah, she could probably beat up a lot of guys at the bar who don't train. And that goes for me as well. I mean, I weigh 175 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I could beat up a guy that outweighs me by 50 pounds if he doesn't know how to fight. Yeah, I could probably mess him up. But I weigh 175 pounds. And if I was to fight a guy who weighed 200 pounds and we had the same amount of training, I'm in big trouble.
Right.
Because we have the same amount of training technique-wise, but he's also stronger and bigger. So unless I get lucky and land, a really good shot on him, or I just happen to catch him in something, the odds are not in my favor.
Right.
And if you're a woman on top of that, it's really not going to be in your favor. So it's just science and it's just biology. And this is not to say that if you're a woman, you shouldn't learn how to defend yourself or train, because no amount of training is going to make you invincible, but it will increase your chances of success. But it is irresponsible to put a biologically, specified male, call him a female after he's been exposed to testosterone for 25 years of his life.
Right.
And then you put him on estrogen and testosterone blockers. It doesn't matter because his bone structure has already been exposed to testosterone for 2 decades, and he's going to have a stronger skeletal system than all of his opponents, and it's just not fair. That's why we have drug testing, even for males. That's why we have drug testing, weight classes. We have rules like, you can't poke someone in the eye or kick them in the balls. This is all to protect the fighters from permanent damage, because yes, injuries are going to happen, but we don't want people to get killed. And Fallon Fox, almost killed somebody
twice, I believe. Correct? Am I right? I why didn't I prepare for this? All I know is that I saw the first fight. I forgot who it was. It was like a blonde chick, and she got fucked up. Like, you could just tell. Like, okay, this is what I want to say. We're not saying for you to not compete. If you are a trans man, you don't see this. You don't see a trans man competing in an MMA. Have that ever happened? I'm not really sure. But majority of the time,
are you talking about someone who is born biologically as a female and then said, "Hey, I want to be a man"?
Yeah.
I'm sure that you could YouTube it and find an example, but the result probably won't be too pretty.
It's gonna be the same thing. John, me, and Randall, we're not telling you to not compete. We're trying to protect the fighters. Okay. Now, majority of the time, the male fighters are going to win. Like I said, we make the argument that it's biologically, they're just superior physically. It's not that women are weak, or we're not trying to like put you down or anything like that. But you have to remember, these are years of training that these fighters go through. I think Fallon Fox got beat by somebody, by a woman. But you have to remember, these people are they have the specialties and stuff like that. You can't just like John said, whoever put those two in the ring together should be fucking sued, because it's just not fair. Like with sports in general, especially like combat sport, you have to be fair. So for the solution, I'm going to make the argument that they should have their own title, like their own category. Does that make sense? Like women, men, and trans women, and stuff like that, etc.
Their own league, a transgender league.
Right. And so the people, the trans athletes, they're going to make the argument that they're not being, they're being they're facing bigotry or discrimination. Yes.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, it just not. I don't see fairness, because seeing the photos of what Fallon Fox did to that woman, wow, she was fucked up. Like, it's consent. If that other fighter consent to being in the ring with a man, then by all means, I mean, there's pretty much nothing we can say. But if she doesn't know, I don't think, to be honest with you, I think Joe Rogan said that Fallon Fox did not tell anybody that she was previously a man, from my understanding.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah. So we have. Go ahead, John.
Then he should be sued too if he didn't tell anyone about it.
Yeah. So I don't watch any sports or anything like that, but to kind of prepare for this podcast, I watched a little bit of it. I'm like, ooh, it's just like, you could just tell it was just like, it was bloody. And they should have their own category. We're not saying as a woman myself, a lot of women, especially the feminists, who a lot of the trans activists are calling TERFs, right? We are women. We are women. Well, not really, because you can beat the shit out of the majority of the women that you see, because we're built tiny. I mean, we're not tiny like mouses or anything like that, but we're just, it's just that we are better off competing with our biological sex, because it's the fact that it's fairness that way. I mean, of course, just like Randall said, if he fights with somebody who's like a little bit bigger than him by like 50 pounds, then maybe possibly there's a chance for him to win. But if he's going up against somebody who's like 200 pounds or something like that, then he's gonna get fucked up. It's just common sense. Does that make sense? It's just like, it's safety, common sense, and it's fairness between both, for everybody in general. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to like, I don't want to like, I totally understand what, like, I don't want to sound like a bigot, just like John said. I don't want to sound like a bigot. But the thing is that you could just look at that fight, and I just felt bad for that chick. Like, it was just like, what the fuck? Well, it's like,
I want to ask you this. So the Russian military, they prefer to have female snipers over men, because they discovered that women have bigger bladders and they can hold their urine much longer, and they can hold a position much than a man can.
Right.
So is that discrimination against male snipers, or is that just the Russian army being realistic? So there are biological differences between men and women, and it's been proven that women also handle their pain threshold over a larger gap is better than men. Men can handle more pain in short bursts, but women can sustain it for longer than men, and that makes them better snipers. So there are certain biological pros and cons to being a male or female, and nature designed it to be that way on purpose. I mean, think about it. 1,000 years ago, if a woman was pregnant, she, whenever you're pregnant, and you've been pregnant before you're a mother, you can't run very fast. You move very slowly.
Right.
So you need a male to protect you from animals and other tribes that may try to harm you. So nature made men stronger on purpose so that we could protect the woman. It has been this way for thousands of years, and then in the last 20, 30 years, now we're saying that that's not the case. Like, come on now.
Even like weightlifting. I believe there's I forgot her name. I just read the article not too long ago, where she is the reason why I say she is because she went into reassignment surgery. She's taking estrogen and stuff like that, but she's still like you guys said, the residue of testosterone for years did changes to her body. She's competing in the women category, by the way. So she's going to end up.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Was this person born a male?
Yes.
Or a female? Okay.
Yeah, biologically male.
And now, biologically, he's a male. Well, he's a male, and that he or she competing in a women's bodybuilding or powerlifting contest.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so, most likely, she's going to end up beating the females. I mean, come on. I would die on the hill, just like Joe Rogan. I will die on this hill to protect women in sport because, I think a lot of, I think Tulsi Gabbard, she made, I believe she brought up this argument that to protect women's sport. And a lot of people were angry and called her a turf and stuff like that. But I mean, if I've seen, there was a runner, I've got her name. She was, born biologically male, and she's competing in women's sport, and she's beating all these females running. Like, what the, you know what I mean? It's just like, not only combat sport, you're starting to see a lot of trans women dominating women and pushing them out of scholarships and stuff because they're not, this is the critical race theory part. They're not oppressed enough. They weren't, they always had a chance, the opportunity given to them. So what's the point of them competing, getting scholarships and stuff like that? So they just give up, you know? Go ahead, Randall.
Are you guys familiar with the rapper Zuby?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Zuby, he went to this female weightlifting, tournament, and he was trolling them, and he walks up to, sign up for the competition. Mm-hmm. And he says, I'm actually a woman. I identify as a woman. And they said, oh, okay. And he's clearly a man. And he goes in there, and this guy is not even a professional weightlifter. Right. And he just crushes all of these women. He actually set the record for women's deadlift.
What?
And then as soon as the tournament was over, he announced on Twitter, right, I now re-identify as a man. I'm no longer a woman. I just identified as a woman so I could set that record. And he was basically proving how silly it is.
It is ridiculous. I mean, I just, like I said, I stand firm, and I said they should have their own league because it's to protect the females. It's to protect the males. It's to play. I mean, that's sports as is. It's fairness, and people want to compete. And just like you guys said, it's just a way for you guys to express yourselves. You know what I mean? It's just like, I can't. That fight still is in my brain, and I can't really get it out of my head because it's just like she was like, I was kind of surprised she didn't get killed. You know what I mean? Like, it's just go ahead.
John, are you still with us?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask if you guys watch South Park.
Go ahead. Good. Yes.
Well, I was gonna ask John.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, John, let's create a hypothetical situation for the audience. So let's say that me and John agreed to have an MMA fight against each other, and then after the fight was over, one of us tested positive for synthetic testosterone in our system. What would happen, John?
If I was the one who had that enhancement drug in my body, then I should be convicted for it, because like that is not fair. It is. There's a contract.
Well, John Jones, who is considered the most dominant fighter in UFC history, his whole legacy has been tainted because in his last couple of fights, after the fight was over, every fighter has to get drug tested after the fight is over, and they found synthetic testosterone and steroids in his system, and then he actually got fined tens of thousands of dollars and has been banned from the sport. So if a male, if a male fights another male, and one of those males gets caught putting steroids or synthetic testosterone in their bodies, they get penalized for that. They get fined. They get banned from the sport. But if you say, "Hey, I'm trans," then suddenly it's okay. And if you question it, then you're a bigot. You're racist.
You're a
this,
bigot.
You're that. Yeah.
And it's like you can't like openly talk about this stuff, or you're gonna get banned for it. I mean, how can we, create this league for trans to compete just like everybody else. We believe you are human, just like me, John, and Randall. But we just
someone should open up an organization for trans people.
Yes.
Trans women, whatever. Or if you were born as a male, and if you want to compete, and yes, you are a trans person, then you should be competing with other males.
Right.
You shouldn't be fighting other females at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to say this. You might consider yourself as a female, but I'm sorry, but biologically you're not.
Yeah.
You weren't born that way. You will have an advantage.
Yes, you have an advantage, and you will win. You will win against, just like John said, it's like putting an adult with a child. It's just not the same. You're gonna fuck that person up.
I want to ask you guys a question. Have you ever seen a feminist get mad that only men are required to sign up for the military draft?
No. I have never seen like a purple hair where she's like, oh my god, I'm oppressed of the patriarchy. But could you go fight?
Yeah. So every male in the United States is forced to sign up for the Selective Service Act, which means that if you do for it, you can face up to $100,000 fine.
Right.
But women are not required to do this because it's recognized. Even right now, the United States Army has passed a new fitness standard test. Every 6 months, a U.S. soldier has to take an Army fitness test, which consists of a 2-mile run, 140-pound deadlift, and they have to do, I think, like 5 pull-ups and a couple of other exercises. It used to be easier, but last year they had this new test, which is more difficult. Over 60% of the women are failing, and they're getting kicked out of the Army.
Right.
And there's a huge uproar, and women want to get the test removed. Mm-hmm. But the Army is pushing back and saying, hey, we would much rather have a smaller, more effective Army than an Army that will be in, but we have a bigger, weaker Army.
Right. And I'd like to add this. Nobody gives a fuck about your diversity if you're in combat. Okay, if you're getting shot at, okay, you need to have people who are really strong to go into these places. So what are you guys' thoughts on women in failing the Marines? Like, I know that I think the Marines, aren't they like the toughest ones to get in, from my understanding?
Well, for normal enlistment, but of course you can apply to go to Navy SEALs or Special Forces.
Okay.
But out of all the entry level branches, yes, the Marines is the toughest to get into, right. And they have the lowest amount of female enlistees.
Right. And I seen videos of people training Marines, and I would rather stick to the kitchen. Okay, they get up. It's tough. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen the motherfuckers training? Jesus Lord, I'm like, nope. I like my nappy naps.
I mean, I really don't mean to, praise, Donald Trump. I mean, there were some things that he did that I liked, and some.
He mentioned the Orange Man.
but
oh, shit.
his ban on transgenders going into the military, Donald Trump actually made a good argument for it, because he said, hey, as the policy stands now, because Biden has reversed it, you can go into the military now as a man and say, hey, you know what? I actually feel like I'm a woman now, and the military has to pay for that transitional surgery.
Really?
So you have a lot of people going into the military now just so they can get their transitional surgery paid for. And Donald Trump said the reason why we don't want transgenders in the military, because do we really want someone in the field who is having to constantly take hormone replacements, and they're constantly having to go to the hospital or the doctor to care for their genitalia that has been removed, and it has to be constantly treated, and that's going to be a huge financial burden on the military. Like, do you want someone in the battlefield who is, transitioning back and forth between male and female? It's a bit of a safety hazard, and it's a huge financial cost that the military, who is funded by the taxpayers, has to absorb. So there is an argument for that as well.
Yeah.
So they're asking for a privilege. How about that?
Yeah, definitely. It's just like, I remember when I was like in college, my first year in college, there was a woman, Butch. I'm talking about, woo. She was like she looked like the American Bullies, man. And she was like the dog. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like her arms were just like, oh yeah, huge, right? And so she was like a gymnast. And so I remember having a conversation with her, and I'm like this little petite little dumpling, right, in comparison to this fucking huge Godzilla. And I'm asking her, how did you, she was a Marine. And she said, this issue has been happening for like quite some time, since like 2007. So this is my conversation with her in college. And she was like, majority of the women fail because of the fact that they're not fit. You can't, because I don't know when the Marines was established, but you have to remember that during that time, it was men. Majority of the time there were, it was the men being trained. So yeah, they're going to make, principles. I'm not principles. They're going to make rules that are, they're thinking about the male body. So you can't change that because of the fact that, Marines, I think they're the first to go in if there's like, like Bin Laden and stuff like that. Was that the Marines that took him out? From my understanding?
Well, actually, Navy SEALs.
So it's like, yeah. So a lot of these people, like she was Butch, like she was like, and I'm looking at her. She goes, look at me. I'm just naturally a big woman. And so pretty much my body's like similar to a male, right? Even though what she said was scientifically wrong, but she was a Marine. She passed. And she was like the only one that, during that time. So I'm not really sure what happened to her now, but she made a good point. I mean, it's just like with the feminists and stuff, they have to understand when they say equality, hopefully they mean opportunity. But if you realistically speaking, women are very much different in comparison to men. I mean, it's just like you can't just put a cute little Asian girl in the Marines and go and shoot Bin Laden. Yeah, it's just not the same. I mean, I think Joe Rogan make his comedy. He was talking about how the Secret Service. He goes, I wouldn't want a little small girl to fucking defend me. And he goes, I'm not sexist. It's just I'm being realistic. I mean, all of us. I mean, we want somebody that's huge. I would like huge bodyguards, not like a cute petite person, unless they know how to use a gun or something. I don't know, but it's just realistically speaking.
Well, think about this. The Navy SEALs is arguably, the most elite fighting force in the United States military. First, You have to join the Navy and pass that basic training. And then through the Navy, you can apply to the Navy SEALs program. In the history of the Navy SEALs, and the Navy SEALs are the ones that do covert operations. They're the ones who, killed Bin Laden. In the history of the Navy SEALs program, last year, the very first woman passed Navy SEALs basic training.
Wow.
Only one has been able to do it, just one. And that happened last year. So that tells you a lot. And there's a discussion that's happening right now, and it's very concerning, is that the Navy SEALs is considering lowering their physical requirements to have a more diverse Navy SEALs community.
Wow.
And it's sort of like what's happening to, we've been talking about, stop Asian hate and Asian racism. But here's one thing that no one's talking about is that Harvard and many of these elite schools, they're turning away Asian applicants left and right because they filled their quota, and they're dropping their standards to include more African-American applicants because they want to diversify their campus. Society is no longer about taking the best applicants. All about let's brag about having the first this,
the most diverse,
or the first that. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Right, and nobody's talking about that as well with the Asian people. So John lives in the Bay, right? Is it the Bay? Like, okay, I shouldn't say it like that. He lives in what area do you live in, John? In that area?
In the On the East Bay. I'm by Hayward, actually.
Okay. East Bay. So a lot of the so we're going to change the subject to Asian hate because me and John, I'm Cambodian, he's Filipino, and Randall was raised by Asians, so he's technically Asian to us. So like with the with everything going on with the Asian hate and stuff like that, John is in that area. So I remember when the first story happened of the Thai man that got attacked and he got killed. And, you know, I was worried about John. I was like, hey, man, be careful. John can handle himself. He don't need me to be worried about him. But so, John, like, so hearing the stories and stuff like that, what do you think about the situation? And why do you think that the rise in crime against Asian is happening? Like, your theory of what's going on, especially in your area.
You know what? The way I see it, a lot of people are making this as if there's like some kind of group people attacking Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it that way. Just because, I don't know. I just don't see. There's not much really evidence. I do believe there is some kind of individual racist acts, but not really reflective of an oppressive power structure.
Right.
But that's just my opinion.
I like that how you wrote that oppressive power structure. That's right on, man. I wish I had like a bell and say ding on that one. But like, you're right. I mean, like if like what's happening, like so with the shooting that happened with, I forgot his name. I think it was like Long. His last name was Long. Aaron Long, I believe. He was an incel. He attacked these parlor. I think that's what's his name, right? Right, John? Long? It's like I shouldn't laugh. Oh my god, I'm such a fucking evil person. But he shot up this place.
Sorry.
Of this parlor, this massage parlor, this spa or something like that. And I make the argument that the reason why he did it was not because of racism. It was because the fact that he had a sin and he happened to kill people that were Asian. Korean, by the way, Korean descent. And so a lot of people were saying that I was a race traitor, which is fucking hilarious, by the way. Those are Korean. I'm Cambodian. Okay. Totally different race of people. But the thing that makes me mad about the story is that the narrative of this whole crime against Asians. So they're grouping people all together, like me and John. John is Filipino. I'm Cambodian. Totally different people. Even though we're kind of like in similar ways, but Filipinos can sing and dance really well. So like, it's like totally different people, group of people. And like, I just don't like the narrative because now it's focusing on us. And with Asians, we are basically on top of the hierarchy here in the United States of America. I mean, it's just our culture, right, John? It's just our culture of hard work, you know, do what you got to do.
Exactly.
You know, we are, and
most of the time we just stay quiet. We keep it to our own.
Yes.
I just kind of want to like, wrap this up. And what I mean is, and what I mean by that is that this guy was just, sure, the guy was having a bad day, blue ball, whatever, and he couldn't get what he wanted and start shooting people.
Right.
Was he racist? Was it racist? We don't know. We couldn't know, but we should just convict this man for he killed people. He killed people. Simple as that. He's a piece of shit for killing people. Was he racist? We don't know. It doesn't matter. He killed people.
Right.
Let's just focus on that. How about that? Put him in jail, or if whatever the law in what was this, Atlanta, Georgia?
Yeah, Atlanta, Georgia.
I mean, if they have death penalty there, then there you go. He killed people.
Right.
We don't have to make this big. The way I see it, the media, they're spinning this around about like, oh man, the Asian hate is rising because that's a hot topic. That's what sells. And
right.
I mean, we just don't talk about this. And that's what's hot right now. It's what's selling.
Exactly. It's what's selling. It's like clickbait. And I think, Randall, remember you brought up the argument that the Virginia Tech shooter, he was Asian, by the way. And I think he was rejected. From my understanding, that's another incel violence that happened. I don't know, All I remember was that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Randall.
Well, the Virginia Tech shooter, he was a foreign exchange student. He was from Korea.
Right.
And yeah, he wasn't too popular with the ladies, and he was kind of a little bit of a shy loner, and he felt and he felt very isolated, and he just snapped and he killed, I think it was like almost 30 students. It was like 28, 29 students.
Right.
And 24, and I believe it was 24 of those students to be white.
Right.
And I remember during this time that the South Korean government got on TV and they apologized on behalf of his act and said that, he shamed their nation. And I remember at that time, Obama got on TV and said, let's not use this as an excuse to judge all, Asian Americans or foreign nationals. This is the act of one individual, and we cannot use this as an excuse to blame everyone of that demographic. And I completely agree with Obama. Mm-hmm. Same thing. If a white guy, if a white Christian goes into a church and he kills a bunch of Muslims, yeah, it's horrible, and that guy should go to prison and probably get the death penalty. Actions of one person, doesn't make it okay to blame that entire demographic. And me, myself, I was the victim last year of a mass shooting, and I was a white victim, and there was two guys involved who were members of a black hate group called the Black Hebrew Israelites, and they claimed that Asians and whites can't make it into heaven. Mm-hmm. I mean, so if you go on Google or YouTube and you type in anything, white on black, black on white, black on Asian, you can find examples of anything. But the problem is the media keeps harping on these individual examples. And if all you do is watch the news, that becomes your entire worldview. Right. And then suddenly, like right now, I have some of my Asian friends that I grew up with who are like family, like literally our family in my eyes. They're like, man, I'm scared of white people. And I'm like, really? Me and you have been friends our whole lives. Have you ever felt afraid to be around me? No, but have you seen the news? And there's the problem. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, and this is the last thing that I'll say, and I'll let someone else chime in, is this latest shooting in Colorado, everyone thought it was a white guy that killed these 10 people in Colorado, and everyone was all over Twitter saying, yeah, another angry white man shoots up some place. And then the next day we find out that he was a Muslim guy from Syria who hated Donald Trump. And then suddenly all the woke left-wing liberal activists got quiet and
let's not talk about that.
Don't want to talk about it.
Right, John? Yeah. It's like,
So yeah, there's my take.
Yeah. So with this entire thing with John, do you feel uncomfortable at the moment with what's going on? With,
no, not at all. I'm just saying that's what most people's reaction would be like. Oh, it's actually a Muslim guy. Let's not talk about that.
Right. Like, shut the fuck up. Oh, is he white? Damn it. Nope. Never mind. We're not going to, it's not clickbait. And they're going to find a way to justify it. I guarantee you. They're going to find a way to justify it and say, oh, well, like Sarah Zhang, for example, is a good example. She made some racist ass tweets against whites. And so, she kept her job. And so the New York Times make the argument. They pointed out the reason why she made these statements was the fact that she faced racism. So therefore, she had the right to be racist back. They're going to say the same thing with Ahmed. Same thing. They're going to say, well, because he faced racism as a child of Syrian refugees and blah, blah, blah. And so this is where you start to see like the mainstream media, they're starting to fall. The whole mainstream media institution is going to fall in about a couple of years or more, because the fact that people are starting to wake up, and now they're bringing Asians into it because the fact that Asians demographic we're not necessarily like the biggest population per se, but we are the most successful because now it does, that narrative doesn't really stand. That's why me and John were like, it's like, really? We're victims? Okay. If you want to start shit with us, there's like billions of us on the other side of the ocean. Okay. If necessary, it's like, we don't fall for it. The reason why we don't fall for it, because we're not victims. And the reason why I say this, and I like I said, I don't speak for all Asians. John don't speak for all Asians or anything like that. But what I'm trying to say is that they're trying to make you the victim. Why? So they can make money off of you. You are a consumer. You are a product. And so they're going to target the Asians at the fact that you are going to feel like a victim. You're going to read their story. You're going to click everything. Even if it's like Asian hate, you're going to click on it because it makes money. That's all that matters. So who they're going to put on the mainframe, they're going to put Andrew Yang. They're going to put the Asian actors, the Chinese actors, the Asian hate and stuff like that. And then let alone like the COVID-19, we all know that it came from China. Obviously, China hid information and now people died because of it. So the Chinese, they own majority of, not majority, but they pay the mainstream media. Let's be real here, guys. And so they're going to make it, seem to the point where if you question COVID-19, it means you're a bigot toward Chinese or Asians. Does that make sense? It's crazy. I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory and I just became Alex Jones for a little bit, but that's what I'm saying. They're using us as leverage to say, oh, let's put all Asians together. So if you say something bad about COVID-19 coming from a lab or something like that, you are a bigot towards Asian. So what they're doing is they're mudding the conversation. They're mudding this discussion and the discourse. Yep. You know what I mean? Well, and so go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just going to say, how many hashtags do we have right now?
Stop
Black
Asian
Lives
hate.
Matter.
Black Lives Matter. Asian Lives Matter.
Yeah, hashtag, stop Asian hate. Hashtag trans lives matter. We have all these hashtags. Aren't we just one demographic away, i.e. white people, from just saying all lives matter? I mean, look, I was driving around. I was driving around in my old neighborhood the other day, and I saw all these yard signs. One said hashtag Black Lives Matter, and then there was another sign next to it, hashtag Stop Asian Hate. And there was another sign that said hashtag Stop Muslim Hate. And there was all these signs, and the only one that was missing from it was, like hate, like don't blame or hate white people for everything. And I was like, wait a second, if you just added white people to the conversation, it would literally be all lives matter. I found that very ironic.
Do you see that over there, John? Like where you're at? Do you see a lot of those signs outside the houses and stuff like that? Because I know you're like woke central right there.
Oh, definitely. Well, I mean, so far not around my area, but like, when I'm driving around Oakland. Well, when I was in San Jose too, I see a lot of signs. I just laugh, but can't really react much, just because a lot of people are watching. It's like I gotta hide myself. I mean, basically, once this podcast is out there, my friends and family are gonna see it, and like, what, I don't care anymore. At least I would know who's gonna be there with me, even though I have a different opinion than them.
Well, does your family and your friends, do they lean they don't lean necessarily far left, do they? I mean, when we say far left to the audience, we think about the communists, stuff like that. That's what when we say. Me on my father's side, no, we're good. We're it's my mom. It's my mommy. It's my
right side. Oh no, actually no. You know what? My mom, I don't really know. She's not here. But definitely,
yeah.
A lot of my friends don't even want to talk to me anymore. Because I used to post a lot of like right-leaning stuff, right-leaning topics, and yeah, I don't hear from them anymore. Next thing you know, I've just been losing a lot of friends. I don't care anymore. Like, yeah.
I mean, like the true people that want to be your friends, we're the ones that's going to stay. And if you're listening to this and you're John's friends, we're liberal. If you really listen to us and what we're trying to say, we even made it clear when we're talking about the trans athletes and stuff like that. We want you guys to have your own leagues. We're not saying to don't necessarily compete per se, but it's just out of fairness and justice, and being able to basically pursue your happiness But at the same time, when you beat the shit out of somebody and break their skull, they're not pursuing their happiness. I mean, you're really setting, it's like boundaries and limitations. That's what we're trying to say.
We have to talk about reality.
Exactly. Thank you. We have to talk about reality.
And
we're not saying. Go ahead, John.
I just want to say that I support women's rights, real women's rights.
Right.
And I'm all up for that.
Right. Like you're like, I don't want to see a fucking woman get her fucking skull getting beaten in. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not.
I don't. That could be like my sister. I'd be pissed.
Yes, exactly. I mean, in Fallon Fox, I think she retired already, but she was big. But it's just like this whole thing with having a difference in opinion, even with the Asian shooting. I think I don't know about John, but I got called a race traitor or whatever, because of the fact that I made the argument that no, it was not racially motivated. It's not the fact that I'm rejecting it. Like I'm not rejecting what happened in Oakland with the Thai man, may he rest in peace. That was not a racist act. And the reason that I think they're doing this is they're trying to like hide the true information, the data of what it proves, who is committing the majority of these hate crimes, right, against Asians. And well, it's blacks, right? Not that we're saying that blacks are racist. We're saying that the perpetrators that commit these hate crimes happens to be black. You know what I mean? And it's having these conversations, these open conversations can be a way to solve the problems. You can't solve problems if you're just going to muddy the conversation, the discussion. You can't change reality. In order to find solutions, we have to face the facts, right? And if we don't, then the issues are not going to be solved. And let alone in the Oakland and in the Bay Area and San Francisco and stuff like that, Asian and blacks always been kind of like the community has been kind of like tension, you know, from my understanding, right? I don't know, John, you live there.
I don't really pay attention much to that, but I'm not really originally from California. I'm sorry.
Were you every time I say where you from, like every time I say that I sound like a racist, because a lot of white people say that to me. Where you from? Where you from? You know what I mean? Like, I'm from Georgia, man. Right.
No, I was born in the Philippines, but I did live in the Midwest, Chicago, baby.
It's Chicago. So you end up in the Philippines, and then you go to Chicago. That's fucking cold. From my understanding, I heard it's like the windy city. That's what they say.
The windy city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least like 4 or 5 months out of the year, it's like it gets really cold, -0 and 4, 5, 6, 12 inches of snow every morning.
No, thank you.
No, actually, I went to California, and my picture of California, my visualization was sunny, always, sunny summer every day, and I didn't know anything about the Bay Area, San Francisco. Like, holy crap, it still it doesn't get cold, it doesn't snow, but it's still cold.
Right.
I guess I was thinking of Southern California.
Yeah. Like, I'm in the middle. I'm in Central, so I'm about 4 hours away from you, John. We should just go to fucking Florida. I'm just going to wear some Crocs and socks and fist fight alligators.
Oh, man. I just went there in October. I actually went to, is it Disneyland, right?
Yeah.
Florida is Disneyland? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, I remember that. Yeah. Great weather.
And, I went to Cocoa Beach, the very first city in the United States. That same day, they got rid of the mandate of the face mask, and how I was happy about that. Of course, like, hearing other people like, about I don't know your opinion about face mask and the coronavirus and all that. I don't want to say I don't want to say anything anymore that would make me sound stupid, like the way they made Donald Trump look stupid.
No, it's okay. It's okay. The Far Wisdom podcast. We're down to earth. We're very open to ideas. So, in my opinion, with the face mask, I think that little babies, as young as infants, should be not wearing a mask. Why? Because majority of the study, the data that was done, majority of the infection was passed on the schools. Let me talk about the schools in particular. Little babies as young as 5 and to infancy, they don't catch the virus, and they don't really die from the virus. So I don't understand why they have to wear masks. I don't really get it. But here in California, where me and John is located at, it's so stupid. It's like, okay, now we have to like double mask. Even if you're vaccinated, by the way, you have to double mask. I'm like, I can't fucking breathe. You know, it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, I can't just put goggles in my face where I'm at it. You know what I mean? And so the whole mask thing, I get it. I wear my mask. I do what I got to do. I follow the rules because I got things to do. I have to go to a grocery shop. I have to do all these things because to have a productive society, we have to negotiate and compromise. Correct. And so that's what I do. I wear my mask, but at the same time, it's like, we're close to each other anyways, like in Costco and shit like that. And here in California, I believe Walmart's still open. Target's still open. Pretty much like the big corporation, they're staying open. And so, like Tesla, where John works, where you sell cars, right? You sell the car, or you work in Tesla. Did they move already?
I was working for Tesla.
Yeah.
No, from what I heard, Elon has already moved or is moving to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Not so sure about the factory. I think the factory will stay in California because it might take a while if they do transport the whole thing to Texas. I believe they've already built a factory again, or building a factory for the Cybertrucks. From what I heard, that's about it. Other than that, my brother works for the factory.
I don't understand like why they let Tesla shut down. Yeah, like go ahead. Like sorry.
From my understanding.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go for it.
Like for like when the COVID-19, when they closed everything down, I don't understand why Tesla was closed, because he didn't really have that much employees. No, from my understanding, like he didn't really have that much employees, and let alone everybody stood 6 feet apart. Everybody had washed their hands.
Oh no, they had to shut down the factory because of COVID. And I just think that we just overreacted with all this situation.
In California, we're still locked down. I mean, technically, we're still locked down.
I mean, supposedly we're getting better now. I just think that shutting down businesses really, I don't know. I just feel bad for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, like what about like has anybody really looked up the numbers about us in California? I know that we had a lot of death tolls. Well, at the same time, we had a lot of people, but I believe from if you compare California to Florida, they have the same like amount of deaths and infection rate. So, I mean, I really don't get the point of us locked down, anyways.
A lot of people aren't mentioning the fact too that the more deaths that a hospital has attributed to COVID, they get, FEMA money. And I actually had a friend who passed away on Christmas Eve of last year. I mean, it was horrible, but he had really terrible diabetes and he had other health issues, but he did contract COVID. But once he went to the hospital, he was having some difficulties and different things, but he seemed like he was okay. He was able to walk on his own, and then they put him on a ventilator, and days later he died. And a lot of people are reporting the same thing. And I actually went to the hospital to view his dead body, and it was very emotional. And they showed me his death certificate, and it said death due to complications from COVID-19. And I was like, this guy had horrible diabetes that he didn't even take medicine for. Like he was taking like nutritional supplements, because he was just so anti-doctor. Right. But they didn't mention his diabetes at all on his death certificate. And this year and last year, we have had record low flu cases. Like the flu is almost non-existent right now.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that is? Like, isn't that a little like fishy? And then too, Donald Trump, Biden both have stocks in Pfizer, the main company responsible for making the COVID vaccines. I mean, so I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but there are too many things. And especially, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Event 201. Are you guys familiar with that?
No. I don't know about John.
Well,
go for
are
it.
you familiar with it, John?
No, go
event
for it.
event 201. If you look it up on YouTube, event 201 highlights, it will give you goosebumps. So, in September of 2019, Bill Gates and other world leaders convened in, I believe it was New York City, and they had this mock exercise of how would the world deal with a worldwide coronavirus pandemic. It was a mock exercise. Yeah, it was world leaders, military leaders, business leaders. This all day. It was like a 3-day conference where they had this mock exercise, and they were pretending that a coronavirus came from a pig in Brazil and it took over the whole world, and how they would deal with it. Well, guess what happened 1 month later? A worldwide coronavirus. So,
wow.
I mean, just stuff like that just makes you scratch your head, and you're like, there are too many coincidences. Like this is like the 9/11 of this generation, where it's like you can't really prove exactly, what the conspiracy is, but there's just too many things that just make you go, huh, that's really strange, and there's no explanation for it besides don't be a conspiracy theorist. And I always remind people, it was President Nixon who was in the Watergate scandal. He was the one that popularized conspiracy theorists, because he was like, I'm not a crook. These are all a bunch of conspiracy theorists, and they ended up being true. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to Alex Jones, majority of the time, he's like, he gets it right. I mean, his approach is screaming and being crazy.
Martial law. It's the end of the world.
Turn the motherfucking cars gray. it's like, and so these things is like, it started to like come into play, and here in California really fucked everybody up. In California, a lot of people commit suicides. A lot of people started drinking. There was a lot of crime rate that went through the freaking roof. Here in Fresno, California, our shooting went up, I believe, 125 or 145%. So Newsom, he pretty much let the criminals go that are not, I guess, quote unquote, nonviolent offenders. And so we had a street vendor that was point blank executed not too long ago. So the crime rates are going up through the roof. I don't know about in Oakland, in that area. From my understanding, I think it went up as well, because in that area they have like a shitty district attorney, and he let everybody get away with everything. I mean, in San Francisco, in the Bay, a lot of robberies too in broad daylight as well. So, I mean, it's just like seeing everything that's going on at the moment, like with the Asian hate and stuff like that. I'm starting to see through it, and I'm pretty sure you guys are in the situation that I'm in. It's bullshit, and it's a way, I guess, to put it more, to kind of like summarize it. Fear sells. Okay, scaring people sells.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the more that you scare somebody, the more that they're going to depend on the government, that figurehead, to protect them from harm.
Well, I actually want to reiterate something. So a lot of people listening to this may be thinking that, oh, she's talking to some right wing, supporter. I do consider myself, leaning conservative. I grew up in a religious household, whatnot. But I support Medicare for all, and no Republican supports that. I think it's a great thing, and I think marijuana should be legal. But I also am not a fan of abortion, so I'm all over the political map. So I can't really be pigeonholed into the left or the right. And I love San Francisco. I was staying out there in 2019. And even though the rent is crazy expensive, I really love the food and culture out there. There's tons of wonderful, martial art gyms. But then once COVID hit, it was just like, the Bay Area just became like a dead zone, like many other places in the world. But and I think we can all agree that, well, I don't want to speak for everyone. At least for myself, I do think that there is a rise in hate crimes against Asians, because people are stupid and they think that every Asian person is someone from China that's bringing in, coronavirus, and not every Chinese person has coronavirus either. So I do think that there is a slight elevation against them just because of all this fear mongering. And I do think that COVID is real. I'm not one of these people that is saying that, oh, COVID is not real and it's fake. I think that all these things are happening, but it's being magnified, as John said. It's being overblown. So we're turning this problem that is real and needs to be talked about and addressed, but we're magnifying it times a million so we can get more views, more clickbait, because these news media stations, the way they make money is by people viewing their commercials. More eyes on the program means more revenue from the ads. Mm-hmm. So they need controversy, and drama sells. And unfortunately, at the detriment of society.
And to the Asian, I guess they say community, is like to us, well, to me, and well, my family, they're Cambodian. I asked them, I said, what do you got? My parents who fled a communist regime. I go, what do you guys think about, the situation? They go, we think it's just overblown. It's propaganda. Yeah, they're succeeding too. A lot of people are like, stop Asian hate, hashtag stop Asian hate and stuff like that. I haven't hashtagged anything. But it's just like, using, the thing that makes me angry about this Asian thing, Asian hate, is that they're not addressing the problem. They are focusing on something else. They are feeding into it. They're trying to make us into the victims. And just like, John said, it's like an oppressive structure that they're making it, like systematic racism, which is absolute bullshit, by the way. Like I said, because if you look at the data, Filipinos and Cambodians and stuff like that, we are successful. We came from Southeast Asia. We came to the country. We did our part. And we just continue on doing what we got to do. And I remember I hit up John. I don't know if you just remember this, John. I hit him up and I asked him, I said, what do you think about this whole thing is happening? He goes, we are told to shut up majority of the time. Like if it, like all these racism, like I've been facing racism since fucking forever. Right. And every time I bring up the race that's committing the racism to me, I'm told that, oh, well, you guys were never slaves. You guys were never, you guys are not the victim, and stuff like that. So, I'm told to be quiet for quite some time. I think, in all honesty, Asian racism against us has been happening for quite some time. We just don't talk about it. Why? It's just not our thing. We suffer quietly, just like John said. We look down. We just take it, and it's pretty much. Well, and you guys, go ahead.
I actually do stand-up comedy on the side just for fun. I'm no professional but I do open mic sometimes. And I noticed that whenever I go to, open mic sessions, it's so easy to, make fun of white people. Like, oh, they can't dance. They have, small penises and all these things, all those jokes, or, Asian people are really smart. Every Asian person is a straight A student and all these kind of things. But the moment that you make a joke about some black stereotypes, then the whole club is ready to like beat your ass, and people are calling you, racist. I actually made a joke, and this may not be appropriate. I'll say it and let
the fire wisdom. This is where inappropriateness come into play. That's my podcast.
Have you guys?
Say it.
Heard? Have you guys? So this was my joke that I gave, and I got ran out of the club basically. But after all these comedians got up there and were making all these white jokes, which I thought were funny, I was laughing at it. How white people can be fake to your face sometimes, and then whenever you walk away, they walk behind, talk behind your back. They have small penises. They can't dance. They can't cook. They don't use spices on their foods. All these things,
right.
And I'm laughing at it, because there is some truth to it. Every joke has some truth. But I get up on stage and I'm like, hey, have you guys heard about Coca-Cola and their new initiative for their employees? So Coca-Cola, I'm not sure if you guys heard about this, but for new employees during orientation, white employees, they take them to this separate room and they pull up this seminar in this slide, and it teaches them how to be less white.
Right.
I'm like, how do you be less white? I mean, I already have a low credit score and a baby mama. I think I'm the blackest guy in here. And that made a lot of people angry because the stereotype is that in the Black community,
right,
there's a lot of single mothers and Black men have low credit scores. Well, I pay child support and I have a baby mama. I'm divorced, and my credit score, while it's not horrible, it's not like nothing to brag about either. It's not an 800. And I thought the joke was pretty funny, but they didn't appreciate it. And I got like some death stares, whispering about what they were going to do to me after the show. But I found it very ironic. And I actually have a YouTube channel that I just released a couple of days ago here, and it's called Where's the Good News, where I only share stories that are positive in the news. To sort of reprogram people's brain. And I made this short documentary called #StopAllHate. And this documentary is about 20 minutes long. And it's just a compilation of news stories of every race, every racial demographic being racist against someone else. And it sort of destroys that narrative that only white people can be racist. So this documentary is called, #StopAllHate. And it's just a compilation of, whites being racist, Asians being racist, blacks being, feminists, being, all these things. It sort of points out the hypocrisy from all the demographics, but then it ends on a positive note and sort of just reminds people that, hey, we're all just people wanting the same basic things. A roof over our head, some food in the fridge, and friends and family, and to be safe.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's not that hard, people.
It's not that hard to just smile and laugh. Okay. And it's just like this whole world, everybody's just trying to make themselves appear in public and stuff like that. And it's me, a current society of just look at me. It's making everybody
Victim
sick.
Olympics is what I call it. Victim Olympics.
It's about me. I'm the victim.
I am more oppressed than you. It's kind of like someone walks up and they're like, man, it's hard being the child of divorce. Well, try being a black child of divorce. And then someone walks up, try being a handicapped, transgendered, Muslim, atheist child of divorce. And well, I'm not sure how you can be Muslim and atheist at the same time, but it's just like we're in this competition about whose life is most shittiest. Whenever I was growing up, we used to brag about what we had. Now we brag about what we don't have.
Exactly. And that's the world that we live in today. Unfortunately.
And as you said earlier, too, everyone talks about like white people are at the top of the pyramid and they're privileged.
Right.
Well, like you said, if you look at the data, Asian Americans have the most degrees. They have the most, household income. They're doing quite well. I'm not saying that there aren't Asians that aren't poor or there aren't Asians in America that are struggling, because they're struggling people in all demographics. But if you look at the data, Asians are outperforming whites.
Mm-hmm. We beat them in their own system.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any fucking sense. If you, like I said, we want to bring reality back to this freaking clown world that we're living in. You know what I mean? And it's a circus, a reality circus at the moment. So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Go ahead, Randall.
I was just going to say one last thing is that, John being a mixed martial artist and me being involved in martial arts is the ultimate way to end racism, because it doesn't matter what color skin you come from. Once you get in the ring, anybody can be knocked out.
Okay.
A black man or a white man or an Asian man, everybody gets knocked out the same. And I think John can agree with me on that.
Everybody falls out the same when they're knocked out.
Exactly.
I really hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, and I'm going to link all the information down below John. This is John's first podcast, and I really hope you enjoy it, John, hanging out with us today.
Hey, I did. I wish I can add more. I wish I can be as intellectual as you guys, or at least sound like it.
No, I'm going to have a podcast episode where I'm going to bring all MMA fighters that are amateur, and they're going to have this conversation. So basically, the Far Out Wisdom podcast is going to be like a little mini Joe Rogan, where all these fighters are going to come together. And I really want you guys to be open about your career in fighting and the pros and cons and stuff like that, because everybody think they're like, oh, well, I can fight and blah, blah, blah. So, anyways, to the audience, I hope you guys really enjoyed this conversation with us, and thank you for hanging out with us. So I'm going to link all the information down below. John Pier was here with us, and Randell Stroud. So and I hope you guys don't call us bigots. We are three of the nicest people that you could hang out. We're not bigots. We're not right-wing lunatics. We didn't overthrow the Capitol on January 6th. We are just regular people that just want the world to go back to, I wouldn't say normal per se, because we're at the stage of radio, so might as well just, go with it 100,000%. But always remember that dicks comes in many different colors. So it's not just whites that are the only assholes. Okay. So, all right. So hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Hit us up, like, subscribe, love, foul. And as always, guys, stay far out. Bye.
Hit like and subscribe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios.